hopefully everything you need to know about Romeo and Juliet, the prologue, and Act 1, Scene 1. Now, I say hopefully everything because there's a lot in here. There is a ton of different situations in this scene, and on top of that, it's very difficult to understand. So hopefully I'll cover everything that may be problematic, but I can't say for 100% certainty that I won't miss something. So let's jump into this. Remember, this is all dialogue. It's a play, and there's very little stage direction. There's some. So a lot of the actual acting out is up to the director and their interpretation of what's happening. So you have the prologue, meaning the beginning. It's kind of the introduction, if you will. It says interchorus, which means that there would be a number of people on stage that come and say this together. It reads as follows. Two households, both alike in dignity, in fair Verona where we lay our scene, from ancient grudge break to new mutiny, where civil blood makes civil hands unclean. So this is telling us the background of the story here. So there's two houses. They're both, I wouldn't say popular, but they're both respected. They have a lineage or a long line, established line in the city, which is Verona. It's where we lay our scene, is where this is taking place. There's an old, I guess they got something against each other from the past, and all of a sudden it breaks out to new fighting. So they have a long time grudge, and it breaks out to new fighting. And their civil blood, their royal, blood, makes their royal hands unclean. From forth the fatal loins of these two foes, a pair of star-crossed lovers take their life, whose misadventured, piteous overthrows doth with their death bury their parent strife. So in this fighting, from two sides are two people that come together in love. They love each other, but they end up killing themselves. Their actions bury or end the fighting between their parents. The fearful passage of their death-marked love and the continuance of their parents' rage, which but their children's end not could remove, is now the 2 hours traffic of our stage. So what's happening on the stage tells the story of their death and how it extinguishes or finishes the fight between the parents and the families. The which, if you with patient ears attend, what here shall miss, our toil shall strive to mend. So if you patiently sit here and listen, if you missed anything that they just said, their work, the play, is going to help you understand. All right, so basically this tells the whole plot. It's like reading a summary before you actually watch the movie. It takes away all the mystery, right? So there it is. That's the prologue. Then we jump into Act 1, Scene 1. And really, this could be divided even more because there's different segments. This play starts off with two servants from the house of Capulet. They're servants in the house. And here's the thing. As servants, they'd be lower class and less esteemed because they work for the esteemed family, right? And here's the thing with the tragedy of anything of Shakespeare. If you read the tragedy of Julius Caesar, it starts out with common people, and really they're just making jokes. Shakespeare starts out with this making jokes, being kind of vulgar. This whole passage is very sexual, and it's supposed to be funny. All right, so as you're reading this, there's going to be play on words all the time, lots of puns and jokes like that. And there's tons of sexual innuendo and not so, I guess, hidden sexual jokes before it moves on to the next part. So it starts out with Samson and Gregory. It says, Gregory, on my word, will not carry coals. No, for then we should be colliers. I mean, in we be in choler, will draw. And while you live, draw your neck out of the collar. So obviously you can see the coals, the colliers, the choler, and collar. Basically the idea here is we says will not carry coals. People that carried coals were thought of as kind of dirty and vulgar people, to have that as your job. And it also meant to put up with insults. So we're not going to be insulted. And if we actually did that, we would be colliers. We would be people that carried coals because they would take a lot of grief in society. And we be in choler. Choler now means to be angry, so there's a play on that. We'll draw, meaning we'll draw our swords. While you live, draw your neck out of the collar. In other words, if you act on this anger, you're going to get hung. And you don't want that, right? So then he moves on to this to try to kind of talk big. I strike quickly, being moved, but thou art not quickly moved to strike. In other words, if someone ticks me off, I'm going to move on it. And then Gregory kind of tries to insult him, saying, yeah, but it takes a lot to move you. You're a chicken. Samson then, a dog of the house of Montague moves me. To move is to stir, and to be valiant is to stand. Therefore, if thou art moved, thou runnest away. All right, so he's carrying on this joke here. Yeah, you might move, but if you move, it's only to run away, because you have to be actually brave to stand still. All right, he says, a dog of that house shall move me to stand. I will take the wall of any man or maid of Montague's. All right, so he continues to try to be a big man here, and that whether it's a man or a woman, I'm going to push them to the wall. That shows thee a weak slave, for the weakest goes to the wall, meaning they can get pushed against the wall, right? 'Tis true, and therefore women, being the weaker vessels, are ever thrust to the wall. Now he's starting to get a little sexual, right? He's focusing on women, they, as a weaker vessel, that he could push them to a wall. Therefore, I will push Montague's men from the wall and thrust his maids to the wall. In other words, I'm going to take advantage of some of the Montague ladies. The quarrel is between our masters and us, their men. So Gregory's trying to stick it with guys where our fight is with the men, not the women. Samson, 'tis all one. I will show myself a tyrant. When I have fought with the men, I will be civil with the maids. I will cut off their heads. The heads of the maids? Aye, the heads of the maids, or their maiden heads. Take it in what sense thou wilt. Right? So then he's gone from, I will deal with the men, and then I'm going to deal with the women. He says, I will be civil with them, but this whole idea of a maidenhead means taking their virginity. So, whatever way you want to talk at the head of the maids or their maidenheads, one way or the other, that's what he's implying here. Gregory says they must take it in sense that feel it. All right, so we're talking about intercourse here. Me they shall feel while I am able to stand, and 'tis known I'm a pretty piece of flesh. So basically when he says they shall feel when I'm able to stand, that's talking about an erection right there. Well, 'tis well thou art not fish. If thou hadst been poor John. Draw thy tool, here comes the house of the Montague. So here's one you could just totally get lost on this. What are you talking about? A fish and poor John? Poor John was a type of fish that would be dried and brittle. It would be stiff, but it wouldn't be a very good catch. So basically the implication here is, you're not a very good catch sexually or otherwise. But then you have this draw thy tool. He's continuing the metaphor of genitalia here, right? Because here comes these two other servants from this other house. Samson says, my naked weapon is out. That means his sword, but it also means his, quarrel, I will back thee. Gregory says, how? Turn thy back and run? In other words, you're a chicken, dude. Samson says, fear me not. No, Mary, I fear thee. I don't believe that you're going to back me up. Let us take the law of our side, Samson says. Let them begin. In other words, we want to be on the side of right, so they can start this with us. Gregory says, I will frown as I pass by and let them take it as they list. In other words, I'm not going to give them a very good look. Nay, as they dare, I will bite my thumb at them, which is a disgrace to them if they bear it. So Samson bites his tongue. It'd be kind of like giving the middle finger as they pass. So it's either, are you going to let that slip by, that I just, bit my thumb at you, or are you going to challenge me? So Samson did this. Now the other house, Abraham, one of those servants, says, do you bite your thumb at us, sir? Samson says, I do bite my thumb. Notice he didn't say at us. Samson says, is the law of our side if I say I? Gregory says, no. So in other words, if you said, yeah, I bit my thumb at you, then you're now on the bad because you provoked them. So Samson says, no, sir, I do not bite my thumb at you, sir, but I bite my thumb, sir. So he's hiding behind the law. Gregory, do you quarrel, sir? Abraham, quarrel, sir? No, sir. So he's not going to own it that this thumb biting was to him. He's just going to say, I bit my thumb. Samson said, "But if you do, sir, I am for you. I serve as good a man as you." So now they're comparing masters. Abraham, "No better." In other words, your man is no better than my master. Samson, "Well, sir." Now here comes Benvolio, which is someone in I guess more of a position in the house, right? So it's actually part of their master's family. So Gregory says to Samson, "Say better. Here comes one of my master's kinsmen." So you can't just let that slide. You got to say your master's better than their master. Samson says, "Yes, better, sir." And of course, that's an affront, saying your master's better than his. So Abraham says, "You lie." Samson says, "Draw, if you be men. Gregory, remember thy swashing blow." So they start fighting. Benvolio comes in to these servants from his house and the other house fighting, and he says, "Put up your swords, part fools, you don't know what you're doing." So while he's trying to separate them, enter Tybalt from the other house. "What art thou drawn among these heartless hinds? Turn thee, Benvolio, look upon thy death." So Tybalt comes in and he's like, "You are here fighting with servants. You're going to face me." Benvolio says, "I do but keep the peace. Put up thy sword or manage it to part these men with me." In other words, help me stop them. Tybalt calls him on it. "What? Your sword is out, you're drawn, and talk of peace? I hate the word, peace, as I hate hell, all Montagues, and thee. Have at thee, coward." So now you have both Tybalt of the Capulets and Benvolio of the Montagues now engaged, because Tybalt wasn't going to have any of this backing down, and they're all fighting. So while they're fighting, citizens of the area come in and they have clubs and weapons, and they're trying to stop this fighting. The citizens say, "Clubs, bills, and partisans, strike, beat them down. Down with the Capulets, down with the Montagues." They're sick of the fighting. Enter old Capulet in his gown. His wife comes in with him. He asks, "What noise is this? Give me my longsword, ho." And everyone always laughs when it says that. It doesn't mean, he's not calling his wife a hoe, right? It's kind of an exclamation. She says, "A crutch, a crutch. Why call you for a sword?" In other words, you're an old man. You don't need a sword. You need something to help you walk. Capulet says, "My sword, I say. Old Montague has come and flourishes his blade in spite of me." In other words, Montague is going to be out here and he's going to make fun of me. So Montague and his wife comes in. He says, "Thou villain Capulet, hold me not, let me go." Montague's wife, "Thou shalt not stir 1 foot to seek a foe." So neither of the women want them to fight, but the men have this pride and this ancient grudge that they're wanting to get into it. However, at this point, in comes the prince with his train. "Rebellious subjects, enemies to peace, profaners of this neighbor-stained steel, will they not hear? What, ho, you men, you beasts, that quench the fire of your pernicious rage with purple fountains issuing from your veins, on pain of torture from those bloodied hands, throw your mistempered weapons to the ground and hear the sentence of your moved priest." So the prince comes in and he uses this language here, profaners, which means to make something holy, not holy, of this neighbor-stained steel. In other words, you got blood from each other's houses on your swords. And he's like, you're trying to kill your anger with blood, basically. So in other words, on pain of torture now, you need to stop fighting and hear what I have to say. He says this: 3 civil brawls, bred of an airy word. So 3 big fights from just conversation, talking back and forth, by both of you two, by the old Capulet and Montague, have thrice disturbed the quiet of our streets, and made Verona's ancient citizens cast by their grave beseeming ornaments to wield old partisans in hands as old. So these are old citizens that are sick of your fighting, and they feel that they have to step in and do something. You've done this 3 times. So they are cankered with peace. They're not used to fighting. To part your cankered hate. So their hands are old and not used to fighting because it's been peaceful, and now your old hatred is causing problems again. If you ever disturb our streets again, your lives shall pay the forfeit of the peace. So you're going to die if you started a fight. For this time all the rest depart away. You, Capulet, shall go along with me, and Montague, come you this afternoon to know our farther pleasure in this case. To old Freetown, our common judgment place. Once more, on pain of death, all men depart. So he's taken one old guy, and later he's going to talk to the other old guy, and he's like, no more fighting. You do this again, and you're dead. So that's where that part ends, and then we move into another section, which is Montague and his wife in Benvolio talking about what happened.